as I mentioned in a previous video, Unity, the game engine, decided to unilaterally change the agreement that it had. So now game developers have to live under a new monetization system. And part of that monetization system is based on like how many people have installed your game. So if a lot of people installed your game, then you actually have to pay money for every single install. So obviously game developers are concerned that they're like, well, one install doesn't necessarily mean that I'm getting any money in return. So what about piracy? And Unity keeps going on Twitter and responding to people saying, we are happy to work with any developer who has been a victim of piracy so that they are not unfairly hurt by unwanted installs. And I'm like, well, motherfucker, every single game developer has been a victim of piracy. Like, I don't think that... Well, actually, you know what? I take it back. We do have, like, California developers, like the AAA kind, which are making games so awful now that no one wants to pirate. So I guess in their case, like, they found a solution. But for the rest of us developers who just want to make a good game, it is going to be pirated. So you just accept it, you know? It's like the type of thing, like, I can't stop you from pirating, but if you ever want a sequel or you want me to make something else that you like, at least make sure that I manage to cut even. Like, at least make sure that the money that I invested in making the first game is something that I get back so I can afford to make a new sequel. Because, as you guys probably suspect, making a video game is very expensive. Like, for example, for my game, it can be anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000, right? So, it's a huge financial investment. Now, Unity goes around and says, well, we're happy to work with you if your game is getting pirated. And they keep parroting this to the point where they got a ghost ban. The issue that I have with this is, like, the way it's supposed to work, if you're a developer that had the misfortune in using the Unity platform, you're going to get an invoice from them, right? So they will say, you gotta pay us $10,000 this month because you had this level of this level of installs. Now, you probably will look at it and you'll say, all right, so my game, I managed to sell, I don't know, 10,000 copies. I made $200,000, so I qualify for this bullshit. And I have like 5 billion installs. Now, you know that this can't be the case, right? Like, you're aware that your video game can't possibly have sold as much as AAA games. So you're going to go to Unity now, and you're the one that has to lawyer up, and it has to communicate with them, and you have to explain to them, look, this doesn't look legit, and they can probably say, no, our systems are correct, and in the meantime, they can just suspend your Unity account. Now, up until now, I don't know how they can do that or what does it mean, but I'm pretty sure that when they implement this, it's probably so that other people can't play your game anymore or install your game, right? So if they do that, until you resolve the issue, you're going to have to give people refunds on Steam. You're going to have your patrons or your people that supported or GoFunded for your game. They're going to be outraged and livid. You know, imagine if it happens to a game like Genshin Impact that requires people to keep logging in. Like, even if Unity would be, quote-unquote, happy of working with you, first of all, there's a huge conflict of interest. Like, they get more money the more installs you have. Secondly, you do not know how many installs you have. They are the ones telling you, so you have to think that what they are telling you is correct. You get, like, to show them all the transparency. Like, they can fucking audit you according to their TOS. You can't even know the technology that they're using to monitor the installs. So complete opaqueness from them, complete transparency from you. So I'm not going to be sure that this is even legal. Right? Like, it's interesting because there's going to be many big companies like Nintendo, Genshin Impact, and many others that are going to be affected by this. And I'm pretty sure, like, some of them are going to have the money to sue Unity, especially when it's going to be cheaper to sue them than to pay them. But anyway, right, so the current system, the way I view it is they advertise it that if your video game has more than $200,000 in revenue, so this includes Patreons, it includes Subscribestar, it includes sales, DLC, keychains, like whatever you do that's connected to your game is considered to be revenue, right? So all of this, if it gets over $200,000, then they look at the installs. So if you have like more than 200,000 installs, then you have to pay per install. But obviously, if you're in that situation, like no one is going to continue doing that business practice. So what you want to do is you're going to upgrade to Unity Pro. Now, Unity Pro says that it's $1 million in revenue and 1 million installs. So obviously, most video game developers aren't going to be hit by this. Like, even if you have people that are going to maliciously install bomb your game, unless you're making over $1 million in revenue, the number of installs don't even matter. So, most games and you know, most people that just make normal video games aren't going to be affected by this. And assuming that there's no piracy and assuming that there's no install bombing, you're probably going to have to pay, even if you do go over $1 million, you're probably going to have to pay something in the lines of what Unreal Engine is asking, right? But there are certain video games that will be affected by this, and their business model is not sustainable. Certain video games that are free, like for example, there was a very popular game, Vampire Hunters, I think it's called, right? Like that one is really, really cheap, and it's very popular, so most people download it. I think like it has DLC and other stuff, so that game is probably going to have to pay Unity at least like 80% of their revenue or some shit. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. Games that are indie, so like you have a Patreon game and someone makes something and it's just like giving the game for free, that one is going to be affected. Like their business is probably going to be unsustainable as well. Obviously there's certain games that no one is going to be upset that they're affected, like gacha games and you know, certain phone games. But basically, to sum it up, it's video games that are incredibly cheap, and they have a different monetization system. Path of Exile, if it was made in Unity, would be affected, for example. And by affected, I mean like you wouldn't be able to maintain your standard of business. Like what you're doing has to change, because like it's to the point where I see some game developers crunching the math and saying that they would have to pay Unity Engine 110%. And this is just like one of the issues, right? Like the second issue is the fact that Unity gets to unilaterally decide TOS. So like you can play by the rules now. You can make a very popular game. You invest a lot of time, money, and effort in it. And then Unity says, we don't want racismus in our games, right? And they get to decide what racismus is. They get to come up and say, if you said an edgy joke on Twitter, you know, if you did a PewDiePie at any point in your life, we can come in and we can kick you off the platform. And they're in the right to do it. But like, the fact that businesses can't predict this doesn't explain why you should use Unity when you can use something like Godot. Or if they want to just, you know, spy on your players. And they will say, yeah, like, we want all our Unity games now to have DRM. We want all our Unity games to be online only. We want to be able to install certain trackers so that we can gather information from the player. And you as the developer can do jack shit about it. Right? Like you're going to get in trouble with your fan base over this. And, you know, people are going to boycott you and they're not going to hurt Unity. So this is why a lot of developers are concerned and they definitely do not appreciate the system. Let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.